Okay, so I remember back when I was a freshman in high school. Right now I'm a freshman in college. 18. I was a freshman in high school, 14, 15 years old. I I had Chinese class, and I dropped that class so that I could not take Chinese. It was a dumb class, and so I took PE instead. And with PE, you get a lot of credits. So there was a lot of older people taking the class just to get credit to graduate high school. A lot of dumb people to graduate high school. And so two guys, two seniors that I remember specifically. One of them, blonde hair, average height. Spiky hair. He was a loudmouth, kind of an asshole, but just loud about it. And he had a friend whose name was Nolan, and he was a huge guy. And I'm 6'4", 6'5" at the time. Right now I'm 6'6", so I was about 6'4", 6'5" at the time, and he still looked huge to me. Not only that, but his shoulders were just massive, so he would bench 500 easily. I remember that during one of PE classes, we went to the gym. He just benched 500 just like it was nothing, which for some people that's nothing, but for this kid who has a waist that's probably 33 inches, who's busting out 500 pounds, that's pretty intense. And so I remember this kid he was just huge. We played tackle football, kind of. It was like a flag football, but we still tackled each other. And I had the ball, and I looked right at him, just stared him in the face as he ran 15 meters right at me, and I just couldn't move out of fear. I just couldn't move. And so he hit me, and I tumbled back, and I fell. I tumbled twice, landed on my back. He laughed, helped me back up. Apparently I gained some respect in his eyes by doing that. And so I did that. And then one day we had this kid in our class. His name was Lancaster. No one really liked him. His name wasn't Lancaster. His last name was Lancaster, so we just called him that. And everyone would make fun of him. Like, I had no problem with him, but I wouldn't hang out with him outside of school. And so lots of people made fun of him, and especially those two guys. They just ragged on him constantly. They would not stop hurting his feelings. They'd call him fat. They'd push him. They would just physically abuse him. So it was terrible to watch, but there wasn't much you could do as a freshman because he was a freshman too. And so one day I learned that I had silent respect. So people would respect me, but I didn't have to be big and tough about it. So one day, these two guys, the blonde hair starter, picks up a rock and just flicks it at Lancaster. And the Nolan finds it funny, big guy. He starts flicking them too. And these are both some pretty cool guys. So once they start something, I can be like, oh, I gotta, I should stop because I might get in trouble. Pretty cool guys. Cool by definition of high school. So they were, flicking rocks at him. And then, at first he thought it was like a game. Lancaster jumping around, trying to dodge him. And then one of them hit him. He was like, ow. He said, ow. So he turned around to, tend to his wound, which wasn't much, but it was still hurt him. And all of a sudden, you could feel the energy outside just change completely. Like, you could physically taste the energy in the air. You could feel it on your hair stick up as all the guys, these two guys, realized, we have power. We have dominance over this kid. So after the first few rocks started hitting him, he actually started crying out in pain, saying, ow, ow, guys, knock it off. It's not funny anymore. And then they just started throwing harder, so they were just literally pelting this kid with rocks that they could find. And then eventually I saw Nolan, the big guy. He picked up a rock about this big or whatever, so it's not huge, but it was still enough. And he actually wound up to throw it like as if he's going to throw a baseball. And that's when I was sitting 12 feet away from him, and I look over at him, and I call his name, Nolan. And he looks over at me, with a rock still in his hand. And right then I had this, little dominance over him because I knew what was right and that he was wrong, and so he knew it too. And so he looks at me, he drops the rock for a second. He turns back to his friend. He looks over at his friend. He's like, "Hey, dude, because I think Rodriguez is coming back." And so his friend drops the rock. He's like, "Oh shit, we gotta go." Rodriguez was our teacher, and so I told him he was wrong. He's not gonna go. He's not gonna turn to his friend, who's just as cool as he is, high school standards, and say, "Hey, dude, knock it off. It's not funny anymore." he's gonna, he tried to distract him instead of telling him to stop. So he was like, "Hey, dude, I think Rodriguez is coming back." So they both go run back and sit where they're supposed to be. And right there, I just knew, I stopped him. Lancaster was still sitting there. He had no idea that I had stopped him. Like, no one else saw it, but I knew that I had stopped him from hurting Lancaster even more so. And lesson learned, I guess you don't need to be huge and powerful to have respect. And as long as you demand respect, like I demanded respect from Nolan at that minute, that second of time. I told him he was wrong and I was right, and that I demanded the respect that he should knock it off. And so that's exactly what he did. He just dropped the rock, and he didn't see him do it any after that. So I win.